Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We went just a little bit over in our earlier meeting. Welcome. We are here at the Fayette County School Corporation Board of School Trustees Business Meeting. We're here at the Administration Building. It's Tuesday, February 9th at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to ask you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we are honored tonight to welcome Stephanie McCann to share a little something about Grandview tonight.
Good evening. Thank you, Cabinet and Board, for giving me some time to highlight Grandview. You know, I'm finishing my first semester as a Wildcat, and I have to tell you, it's been a seamless transition, and it's also been a very fun transition. So I'm really excited to share with you a little snippet of why I have the best job in the world. Every day I watch teachers and staff come together and move kids forward, whether that's in academics or social emotional. And it's just an exciting place to be right now. So take it away, Terry.
Hey everybody, I'm Stephanie McCann. I'm the principal at Grandview Elementary. We're so glad you're here. Welcome. And we know 2020 has been a tough year, but there's one thing we want you to know is that here at Grandview Elementary, we're still growing.
My name is Macy Brown. I am a reader. My favorite book is Santa's New Suit. It is funny because he turns you into pajamas.
My name is Aniston and I'm a reader. My favorite book is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is my favorite book because of how detailed the book is. There was never a time where I couldn't see what was happening in the book.
My name is Nellie. I am a reader. My favorite book is the Pokemon Deluxe Essential Handbook. Because Pokemon are my favorite animals in the whole universe. Pokemon are basically animals with magic powers. That's why I love that kind of book. And also, the book has over 800 kinds of Pokemon in it.
My name is Wally. I am a reader. I like the book Selma Unicorn because it's funny. Because Selma takes a carrot to her head and she's too famous, and pink painting glitter falls on her.
My name is Gabe Malloy. I'm a writer. I wrote a biography about Helen Keller to inform. My favorite part of my writing is the introduction. Let me tell you about it. Someone once said life is either a daring adventure or nothing. That person is Helen Keller. Helen was 19 months old when she was struck with an illness called rubella. That didn't stop Helen. In this biography, you will learn how Helen overcame her obstacles and how she made achievements.
My name is Liam. I'm a writer. I got a nosebleed. You see, I got a nosebleed from the arm of the chair.
My name is Macy Brown. I'm a writer. I wrote a brochure to persuade others to visit the Fayette County Free Fair. My favorite part about my writing is to help others visualize what I'm writing about. Visualizing is like creating a movie in our heads based on the text we see.
My name is Addison Krause. I am a writer. I wrote, I want a pet to persuade my dad. My favorite part of my writing is, I think the best pet to have is a puppy. I can pay for its food. I can take it on walks around the block. I can clean its poop.
I'm a writer and I'm the author of The Journey of the Last Scenes, and I wrote this story to entertain. And my favorite part of the story is when, after I fight Vegeta, he says, "You leave me no choice but to do this," and then he goes Kaioken times 20, and once Kaioken is applied to a transformation, a red aura emerges from the original aura.
My name is Emma Paxson and I am a thinker. I built a roller coaster that shows potential and kinetic energy. When I take my marble and put it at the starting point, it is potential energy. If I release the marble, it's kinetic energy. I will bring it up back at the top and release it.
We just saw potential and kinetic energy in 3 seconds.
My name is Sam. I am a thinker. I like to learn how things work, like cars.
My name's Delaney. I'm a thinker. One of the things I think about most is baking sweets to my friends and family. I enjoy baking cookies, brownies, and especially cupcakes. I like to bake the vanilla cupcakes with chocolate icing on the top. And after I'm done icing them, I like to decorate them for my mom and my sister. This one time my friends came over and we made cupcakes for my sister and her friends because they were having a sleepover. So Belle got out all the ingredients, so me and Amber were preheating the oven to put it in. We mixed all the ingredients in a bowl, but then we had an idea to add in sprinkles. So we added in the sprinkles and then we put them in the oven. Once we pulled them out, we found out that they were deflated and we had failed. But we still don't know what made them deflate. I think it was the sprinkles. I hope that we can do it again someday, and someday in the future, I hope I can make a 3-pound cake.
My name is Austin. I'm a mathematician, and this year I learned negative numbers. Negative numbers are numbers less than 0. So negative numbers go less and less every number.
My name is Shannon. I am a mathematician. I have learned 2-digit subtraction with Barry. So first you write 72 and then 35 under it. Put a minus sign, put a line under it, and then draw the imaginary line. And then you check if the big number is on top. And then you mark off the 7 and put it to 6. Mark out the 2, put it to the 12, and subtract 12 minus 5. It equals 7. And then you subtract 6 minus 3. It equals 3. The answer is 37.
My name is Kendall Bodley. I am a mathematician and I have learned long division with decimals this year. I am going to show you an example. First you put the dividend inside the box, and then you put the divisor on the outside of the box. So you move the decimal in the divisor until it's a whole number, so this time you only have to move it once. Then you have to do the same on the other one. 12 doesn't go into 1. 10, so you have to take into, you have to go 3 deep and take into 103. Put the A over the last digit you used. You do 12 times 8, which is 96, and you subtract that. So it's 7, and then you bring down the 6. And 12, let's try 12 times 6. So you subtract that, and you put the 6 up here. Then you subtract. And then since you don't have any numbers left, you just bring down a 0. Let's try 12 times 3. And then that's as high as it will go, so you put a 3 up here. It's repeating, so you just put a line over the 3. That's the answer.
We are a team. We are a team. We are a team. We are a team. We are Grandview Wildcats. We are Grandview Wildcats. We are Grandview Wildcats. We are Grandview Wildcats. We are Grandview Wildcats.
first time I saw that, because when I watch things like that, it's a great reminder for me that our future is in great hands. Again, thank you for letting me share tonight. I want to thank my third grade teacher, Kate Charlton, is here also to highlight Grandview, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. How many of you were happy to see that even though they call it different names, I'm sure they were still borrowing and carrying? Oh my gosh! I could do their math the way they were doing the math almost. All right, thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dennis. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Patron comments on agenda items. We do have one. Brian Durham. Please come to the podium and share what you wish to share tonight.
Before he does that,
Oh.
I'm going to call Chris in.
Okay. We have a board member that had to be gone tonight, but he's,
We're allowed to join.
yes, telehealth.
We're having Zoom problems, he's down south,
message,
and
yeah.
so, Chris, are you there?
Problems this afternoon.
Oh wait, you have to turn up again.
Yes, the whole room can hear you. This is Chris Hunt, so welcome, Chris. You are joining the meeting now. And Brian Durham is here, he's getting ready to share some information, so.
So, Mark is part of the redevelopment commission. He's your assigned member to that. He and I were talking about Junior High South, or the resource center, and the opportunity to redevelop that property into something other than, an empty building. He and I talked back and forth about that through email. I have an architect who's interested in designing that space. He was actually the same architect that did Pattern Mill a few years ago, so Steve Alexander, and finding a buyer after the design and turn it into what would essentially be either a senior housing complex, low to moderate income housing, or low income housing project funded by the USDA. Steve is willing to find the buyer and do the design to save cost. He just didn't know all the ins and outs of the building. So that was one of the things. Mark had mentioned that there were problems with the building, but we didn't get into details about Junior High South and the condition of the building. I did show Steve some pictures from the outside and from memory what the inside of it looked like. And he's very interested in working in Connersville again. He had so much fun doing the Pattern Mill project. He also designed the John Connor statue downtown, so those are two projects that he's already done here in town, and he's very interested in pursuing more projects here in town. And I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
I'm assuming there's been some conversation.
No, we haven't had any.
No, I've only talked with Mark.
Okay,
Right, Mark
okay.
invited him tonight, so we do have another local not-for-profit that looked at it last night, but I think our next step would be, if Steve would want to come in, we could set up a time here sooner rather than later, and we could get our facilities director, and we could go over and let him take a look at the facility.
With USDA funding, like September is usually the cutoff deadline
Okay.
to get the funding for the following year. I don't know if Mark's told you guys this. We had another project that was close to coming to fruition. When was that, Mark? August?
Yes.
We were on a very, very tight deadline last year in August to make something happen by September. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, and we lost out on another housing project that would have been 50 units. So we're hoping to be early this time around and not miss out on the potential of a housing project. So I will follow up with Steve tomorrow and have him reach out. Should he reach out to
Just
you?
contact my office, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have him reach out and go from there.
That would be great. There are some different rules depending, transfer of the property to a not-for-profit is different than to a for-profit, or, so there will be some things we would have to work through, obviously, with that our attorney would work with us. So, but we would be I think the board, we would love to see a purpose. I don't want to speak for the board, but I think we would all love to find a purpose for
Well,
the
and
building.
there is the potential, so the redevelopment commission could be that middle person to, work that through. Ultimately, I'd like to find a buyer, because then that puts money back into your guys' general fund as opposed to, maybe gifting it to someone. little money always helps, as opposed to, the number that I was given was, somewhere around $20,000 a year sitting empty. I don't know how accurate that is, but having some money is better than forking out money in the grand scheme of things, so, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, we will now move on to the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from regular business meeting of 1/12/21 and the special meeting of 1/28/21. The personnel report, retirement, resignations, leaves of absences, etc. The approval of the January 2021 claims 58278 through 58511. The annual list of outstanding checks more than 2 years old. And then donations, and quite generous tonight. A donation of $500 from the National Theater for Children Incorporated to CMS to be used to purchase science materials and related science supplies. A donation of 1,000 pounds of stainless steel valued at $200 from Wayne Manufacturing Incorporated from Richmond. A donation of 1,000 pounds of sheet stock steel valued at $175 by Elevator Equipment in Richmond, Indiana. A donation of a $200 gift card from Harbor Freight to purchase tools. A donation of 1,200 pounds of stainless steel valued at $250 from Hoosier Feeder in Knightstown, Indiana. And a donation of certification materials valued at $1,395.83 from Crane Works in Morristown, Indiana to WCC to be used in the welding technology program. So all of those items are being used for the welding program. Great. A donation of $996 in memory of Joe Connell, a former precision machining student, to WCC to be used for Precision Machining Student Awards. And last, a donation of $758.78 from Donors Choose to Frazee Elementary to be used to purchase bouncy bands and cushions for students' chairs. And we are always so grateful for the generosity of businesses and individuals that make donations to the school corporation. So I would like to seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What are bouncy bands?
They're sensory items for kids. A lot of different tools are out there now that I could have used when I was in elementary school, where it helps with kids that need to fidget or different sensory things for kids.
Okay,
So
I had no idea.
they're pretty
Okay.
popular in our schools.
Okay.
They can be pricey, so this is a grant that really helps fund that and supply those.
Oh, good, okay.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Andy. Do I hear a second?
I will second that, Madam President.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor by, raise your right hand. I'm sorry, Chris, I got confused because you're on, you want to just
You can say aye.
say aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. I think I forgot to ask for a discussion, but, okay. You're throwing me off there, Chris. I'm not used to having you not here with us, so. Okay, we're moving on to action items. It's the personnel report. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
I just have a short personnel report this evening. Recommending 2 classified staff members, Stephanie Go, PE assistant for the high school, and Kathy Wilson as a bus aide in transportation. Also, the administration recommends that Tina Smith receive an increase in job responsibilities as deputy treasurer and a salary increase to $60,000 per year, retroactive to January 1st of this year, 2021.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to see a motion to approve the personnel report.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we'll now move on to the approval of the Education Hall of Fame Selection Committee. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. President, Board. So one of the, I think the biggest honors that we have as a school district is recognizing educators in the Hall of Fame. And so as we prepare and hopefully get to have a recognition program earlier than this past year, we do seek board approval for Board Policy 3.51 that approves those 5 people. Mark Beard will serve a 2-year term for 2021-2022. Parent Devin Hornsby, patron Audrey Cloyd, and teacher Tanya Stewart will complete their 2-year terms in 2021. So they will join myself on that board. So I'm asking this request to approve the Hall of Fame Selection Committee for this year.
Thank you very much. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the Education Hall of Fame Selection Committee.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Dennis. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thanks, Andy. Any discussion?
Just encourage people, if you know an educator, look at what's required to be nominated for the Hall of Fame, because as an educator, there is no greater honor. I got this bestowed on me a number of years ago, and it's a way to recognize educators who have given so much time to the Fayette County School Corporation, and it's usually not reflected in their paychecks over the past 30, 40 years. I think Joe Glowacki holds the record for people having worked for the corporation the longest. But would encourage people out in the public, if you know a teacher and they've been out of the system, I think it's now for 2 years. There's some qualifications that I'm not quite sure of. But put it together and bring it to us, because there's nothing we like better than honoring those who have given so much to the Fayette County School Corporation. So I think the deadline for that is what?
In March.
March 1st.
March 1st, okay. And it's not a difficult process to do. The central office here has all that information that you need to make a nomination. So would encourage the public, if they know a retired teacher or administrator that they really feel has been exemplary for the Fayette County School Corporation, to please go take the time and nominate them for the Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Ann. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the Head Start Corrective Action Plan. Kelly McCollum.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a little highlight sheet to pass out for you. I know you've seen my long form that I have to turn into Head Start, but I wanted to highlight some of the positive things that staff has been working on throughout this plan.
Chris, I'll take a picture of you. I don't think you guys.
So as you may know, Head Start was issued a non-compliance back in the fall during an incident that we had to report to Head Start for our performance standards. When we hold a federal grant, we're held to a higher standard because we want to make sure that our families and students are receiving the best care when they are being serviced by our program. With that said, our leadership team has worked diligently to put together a corrective action plan to identify and address any systems issues on our end. So initially, our program had a call with Office of Head Start, and we were assigned a training and technical assistance team to guide us through this corrective action plan process. At that initial call, the training and technical assistance people were very excited about the great things that we've been doing, and that we already were correcting what we felt was an issue that we needed to report. So throughout the last 120 days or so, we have developed a procedure for replacing absent staff. So with COVID, sometimes we have multiple people absent for long periods of time. So to keep that continuation of care in our classrooms, I developed a procedure to make sure we're putting people in there that know those jobs. We're not just putting someone who may only ride the bus into a position where they need to be working directly with children. So we're really mindful about who we're replacing staff with. Our onboarding for new Head Start staff now includes trauma-informed care as part of their orientation. We have ongoing professional development that includes staff mental health and classroom procedures. And that's something our program identified last year in our self-assessment, so we're just able to really showcase to Head Start that we've been working on that. Our ratio in our Head Start classrooms is 1 to 6 this year, and this is allowing us to increase our active supervision. Our COVID procedures and the social distancing allowed us to have less children and more staff in rooms.
A mental health consultant completed a climate observation in each classroom and provided feedback to the teachers. So Mike Schimmel is our mental health consultant, and he virtually viewed each classroom and made sure that areas were in compliance with our Head Start performance standards. Our COVID procedures were developed to improve the collaboration when the classroom teacher has to be out for an extended period. So if a teacher has to quarantine, she'll FaceTime daily with the person who is taking over just to keep that collaboration intact. And then we have increased monitoring and behavior support that we have embedded in the daily routine of our Early Learning Center. Let's see. So at this time, I am seeking your approval of our corrective action plan, and I will formally submit that to Head Start Regional for review. Once that has been submitted, Regional will call me and just discuss what we have submitted. Does anyone have any questions?
Kelly, the incident about which you spoke, I'm assuming that this is basically a very isolated incident that took place. It's not a pattern and practice of behavior at all. It was an isolated incident that you took immediate action to correct.
Correct. It was an isolated incident, and Head Start did not find any system errors in our policies and procedures. They were very complimentary, that we followed not only our Head Start procedures, but also our school corporation procedures when addressing incidents. So this is the formality that goes along with that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the Head Start Corrective Action Plan.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Okay.
Aye.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
And motion carries. We'll now move on. Kelly's right there. Approval of the Head Start shade structure purchase.
So now I am seeking something more fun. We are interested in purchasing a shade structure for our middle playground. Right now, it's just a concrete slab that we have the bikes out on, and in the sun, it is like an oven. So we are interested in purchasing a shade structure to cover the majority of that area, so when children are outside, we can have that shade, and that keeps us in compliance with our performance standards. But it'll also give us an outdoor learning space that we can use this spring and early in fall when weather is nice. The company that we are using is going to in-kind us a little over $2,000, which is great for our program, especially during COVID when it's hard to get that non-federal share match without our parent engagement being what it typically is at this point in the year. So I am seeking your support in purchasing this shade structure that is a piece of equipment over $5,000. Grand total is $19,000.
Is it typical that a company will provide a little cost share
They
with you?
do. If you tell them you're working for a federal program, they are more than willing to negotiate that non-federal share.
Okay, that was great. Okay. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the Head Start shade structure purchase.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Kelly. We appreciate all your hard work.
Thanks.
Okay, we will now discuss permission to advertise RFP for upgrading the network infrastructure. Mr. Collins and Mr. Miller. I guess Mr. Miller or both.
Mr. Harris,
Or-
oh, no, this is Mr. Miller, yeah, I'm
And
sorry,
you.
I'm on the wrong one. So, yeah, I just want to acknowledge Terry before. We've been able to make a lot of improvements in our network and our capabilities, and we've really taken advantage of the federal funds that are out there. It's just huge for us, and through the grants that we received with the COVID-19 too, we've been able to make some substantial progress in our accessibility, and Terry's working on something for the newspaper to share with Ms. Corsaro about that we hope to get in the paper in the next few days with just accessibility around all of our buildings that we significantly upgrade. So I just wanted to say thanks to Terry and his team for the good work they're doing to really move us forward technology-wise. So this is part of that, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You're welcome. Yeah, we are on a fifth-year rotation for applying for funds with E-rate. Again, that's all those taxes you pay on your cell phone bill that go public schools and libraries. We have a budget of $167 per student, bringing our budget to $536,000. And this past experience with the field house, we determined that we're not getting the performance out of our fiber that's here on the campus. So we're looking to install and replace all locations with new fiber. Of that budget of $536,000 offered to us by E-rate, $455,000 will be covered by the E-rate program. We do not know at this time we haven't got proposals, we don't know what our expense is going to be, but we do know when we looked at, with Fannie and Howie replacing the fiber when we were working on the field house, that came out to about $65,000 for about half of the project that we're proposing for this time around. So we will continue to make use of E-rate for opportunities if we don't completely extinguish it with this particular proposal, but I think we'll still have a remaining balance and we'll look to other opportunities to improve our infrastructure.
Are those E-rate dollars available at different times? Is it every so many years or?
Yeah, it's on a 5-year basis.
It's 5 years, okay.
So I was here 5 years ago,
right.
2016, looking for the same permission to advertise the RFP.
Yeah.
So, we prefer to, because it's driven by enrollment, we prefer to go after the biggest projects we can first, because enrollment numbers continue to decline year after year. Therefore, we want to maximize the budget opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I would like to seek a motion for permission to advertise the RFP for upgrading network infrastructure.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, thanks, Mark. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, recommendation for bus purchase. Darrell Drew.
Good evening, Board. We are looking to purchase 3 66-passenger Thomas buses and 1 lift bus like the last one we purchased in 1905. It's a little bit smaller bus. We can get around a lot easier on some of the one-way streets with the handicap and special needs.
You better clarify the 1905 because that was the horse and buggy days still. It's a good time to educate about the numbering of our buses.
Okay. Each year when we buy buses, we put that year's number and then start numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And a lot of times the 5 is always like our lift buses that go and pick up our wheelchairs and it seems like so. But this one here in particular, we bought in 19. It was a 36-passenger with a lift, so it's a lot smaller bus than one of our 66-passenger. We can get around a lot better with them. And in purchasing these 3 buses, we are looking to trade in 10 buses. They are all 66-passenger buses. The trade value just continues to go down less and less and less, and we have too many buses sitting around right now at the moment. We got 7 additional ones after we trade these in for sub buses, which is what we feel like that's all we need. So Scott and I have looked at the value, and Randy, and they just continue to go down, and then we're paying about $1,000 a year in insurance on each one of these to set up there. The O3s have not been moved, so I mean we haven't needed them. So it looks like we'll save about $20,000 just to get them off our lot and free up some parking in our lot where our drivers can park.
Okay.
So all of these buses are ancient in bus language?
Yes, I mean a lot of the 2011s would be about the only thing that anybody would want. The 9s, no one wants that engine anymore in them because it wasn't a great engine when they were purchased. So yeah, they're past their due for us.
Okay.
And as we've made some, with the software that we purchased in the efficiencies in our transportation department, we don't need as many buses as we did too. But I think that there's been an overabundance of surplus buses sitting up there that we're insuring and paying for upkeep. That the only time Darrell moves them is when the state police comes out and inspects them. And so we're trying to move some of those off and get rid of some of the insurance and upkeep costs on those too.
Cut our inventory a little bit.
Our inventory is pretty high for this.
Yeah, it is, and so we need to get down a little bit, and like you said, our inventory is a little bit more than we need, but with our software and everything, I mean, we know what's going on with those buses before they hit our lot and tell us what's wrong with them. So we need a second mechanic that we're working on, but our mechanic right now has done a great job, and I mean, he's pretty much on top of it before the bus gets there. So he's got the parts called in and everything else normally, so it's been a big help. And the new garage and lift is perfect. I don't know if you got to see that yet, but you really need to see that, so.
There are those 7 buses, are they ready to go at an instant?
Yes, yeah, they go through inspection just like everything else we do. We do have 110 that is on the road. We have a driver he's been driving probably 40 years and he doesn't want a new bus. So he wants to keep that bus, and as long as he's willing to drive, I'm willing to give him that bus.
As long as it passes our inspection.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't have any issues with it. You know, it's not got too many miles on it. He drives a very short route.
Does he have a name for his bus? You know, people have names for their cars.
Not that I'm aware of, but, you know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like the old car that you don't really want to have to get rid of.
Uh-huh. Well, I don't know, some of these are old enough that we kind of want to just get rid of.
Yeah.
And I want to mention too, just, you know, the forward thinking and the leadership with Daryl and his department. I know I've talked about Terry, but we don't do what we do without great people behind the scenes, you know, and he's my early morning buddy on these mornings, and he's up before me, and, you know, the public doesn't always realize how many hours you spend making these calls and close school today. You know, Daryl takes the southern part of the county, I take the northern, and he talks to half dozen people in that time, but it's a big decision, but, you know, I just appreciate that, because they're important decisions we make transporting our kids every day, and I think our department's really come a long way. So we want to get an open house for the new garage part. We're trying to watch the weather when it's a little better to get up there. We like to do that here in the next few weeks if the weather permits, to offer a time to come and check it out. So they're very proud of that, I think.
Yes, we are. So how many of you thought we were crazy this morning when you looked out the window and thought, why are they closing the school?
No.
Because most people north said, what is he doing?
I live south, so I didn't question
And
it.
south, they're like, good call, Scott.
Yeah. Although the plow was on my road at 7 a.m., which was
Really?
surprising. Yeah, because I think there were some areas later in the day that still weren't touched.
Yeah.
There's an advantage of living in the same neighborhood as the transportation director, because they were out very early. Thank you, appreciate that.
It's been nice, but Franklin County is already on a 2-hour delay for tomorrow. It's that bad still.
Yeah.
And our southern part is still rough,
Yeah.
so.
Rather than take the risk of any of our kids getting harmed, we can do e-learning if we need to now, and it just seems to be a no-brainer to err on the side of safety, particularly buses and slick roads don't make a good combination at all.
I will say, all the people I talk to as transportation directors, their superintendent is not out on the road, I'll promise you. There's a few times that we've got a local one around, and the transportation director calls over and over and over, and he don't always answer. So not many are involved like Scott is, so it's kind of nice to be out there, and you know, and every day I get educated. We talked about sporting events tonight, and he kind of is like, well, here's how I look at it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just thinking about it being on the road. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you, Daryl. We really appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the recommendation for bus purchase.
I so moved.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the 2011 bond refunding, Mr. Harris and Mr. Collins.
And I want to point out one thing, with the purchase price of those buses, we're 69,000 under what we budgeted in our budget this year with that, so that's a plus too. So I just want you all to know that. So, alrighty, we are going to be dialing up Mr. Brock Boucher, our finance committee.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
We had the finance committee talk with Brock, he's with Baker and Tilly. But what we're looking at is the middle school project from 2004. And we have about $5.8 million
Enter
outstanding
your
on
participant
those
ID
payments.
followed by pound. Otherwise, just press please enter the meeting passcode followed by pound.
Welcome to our world, Terry.
So anyway, we're looking at opportunity to refund those and save significant amount of dollars with refinancing.
This meeting
So
passcode is invalid. Please re-enter the meeting passcode followed by pound. You are in the meeting now. There are 2 participants in the meeting. You have been added to the waiting room. You cannot talk or listen until the host admits you to the meeting.
Fayette County has joined the meeting.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes?
Yes.
Still there?
I'm here, yeah. Yeah, ready for me to jump on in?
Yep, we're all here. We're waiting for your presentation. Thank you.
Great, great, thank you. No, I appreciate the flexibility and patience with technology. Sounds like we're up and running. I'll do a quick intro here before I jump into the presentation. My name is Brock Boucher with Irvin Baker Tilly, formerly Umball. For those of you who have a little bit better memory than I do, you may recall that a colleague and I visited with your school board back in 2017 with the general obligation bond project. So it's good to see everybody again, at least virtually now. But again, appreciate you allowing me to join virtually here to walk through some exciting opportunities ahead for the school board and the community. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to pull up the presentation. So the purpose of tonight's presentation is walk through opportunity to look at the 2011 A bonds. I think as this community knows and this board knows well that interest rates are darn near the lowest they've been in the history of our country. So it presents a nice opportunity for the 2011 A bonds to consider refunding those and generate some savings for potentially for projects or to decrease future payments. So before we take a look at the estimated savings, let's go ahead and start off with the outstanding debt for Fayette County School Corporation as of today. The 2009 bonds were paid off in budget year 2020. So as of February 2021, we have 2 bonds outstanding, the aforementioned 2011 A bonds and also the aforementioned 2017 general obligation bonds. We also have a state loan called the Common School Loan that is outstanding as of today. So essentially 3 securities outstanding as of February 2021, with 2021 being our peak payment year for about $2.5 million. But all debt will be paid off or debt-free essentially as of today at the end of budget year 2027. So again, the focus is looking at this total payment here remaining for 2011 A bonds and seeing how we can generate some savings based upon the interest rates. Again, before we do that, for the visual learners, we always like to show the same information just in graph form. So again, you can see peak of debt here in 2021 for Fayette County. We have a slow cascading waterfall effect from there. So really presents a nice opportunity to not only refund, but look ahead for future opportunities and how we may want to manage the debt going forward. So 4 opportunities that we'll talk about this evening on how we can generate the savings and how we may want to tailor the savings. For those who may recall, these are $10 million bonds that were issued back in 2011. The average coupon, the average interest rate remaining is about 4%. And you may be asking yourself, well, besides interest rate being low, why now? And the second feature is that these have a call date of July 15, 2021. That means that we can refund these bonds 90 days before this call date of July 15, 2021, and refund these as tax-exempt bonds, which again helps us keep the interest rate low because bondholders then could purchase these bonds at a tax-exempt rate, so they wouldn't have to pay income tax on them to help, again, lower the interest rate for the school corporation. So in looking at the four options, option one that we'll walk through in a little more detail here in a moment is, well, what if we just kept the structure the exact same how it is as of today, but just take our savings just equally throughout the remaining payments that we have for the life of the bonds. Scenario two that we'll look at in a little more detail is, well, what if we look at a tailored savings? So we already know that we have our budget set for 2021. So what if we just tailor the savings and focus it from budget year 2022 through 2026? Scenario three that we'll look at in a little more detail is, what if we keep our payments as they are and have improved budget-wise in 2021, but take all the savings in this calendar year? That enables us to move whatever savings we can generate by paying the same amount on our lease rental payment for 2021, and essentially that becomes project proceeds that we can use toward improvements around the district as needed. Then scenario four that we'll look at is, what if we just shorten the term of the payment at the end of the bond? So we'll keep all of our payments level until that last budget payment in budget year 2026. As I mentioned, looking at these four scenarios, the estimated interest rate is less than 1% just because of how low the yields are for investors. And looking at the summary between the estimated net present value savings, so for you bankers out there, you know that the time value of money, we're pretty close to one another in these three options, that the net present value savings is somewhere between $335,000 to almost $350,000. So a pretty similar net present value savings between the four options. That net present value savings in all four options equals about 6%. And this board may recall that the industry standard for where we want to generate net present value savings is typically at least 3%. Now, that factors on how you want to use the savings, but typically there may be some hesitation to proceed if you're not generating at least 3%. So the fact that we're getting double that, again, bodes well for the timing and the potential we have. So you can see the gross savings. The gross savings is the actual dollar for dollar that we would save, so no time value of money incorporated here. So again, the true hard dollar is the estimated savings of about $350,000 to almost $370,000. And you can see what the annual estimated savings are. And then in only one scenario, scenario three that we've discussed, we're generating dollars actually for projects, and there we're estimating that we'll generate approximately $340,000 for projects around the district. In all scenarios, all four scenarios, we're not extending the existing payment term, so it's all savings within the current pay structure or the repayment structure that still matures at the end of 2026. So as we look at the first option, just taking level savings every year from 2022 and beyond, we can see that the annual savings from a lease rental standpoint are an estimated $69,000 to $73,000 per year. So that generates an estimated lease rental savings of $359,000 total over the remaining years through 2026. So again, for the visual learners, the here that you see is the outstanding bonds that are not the 2011A bonds. This kind of bluish green color are the 2011A bonds, and this orange shade is the estimated savings. So if you compare the prior visual slide to this one, you can see in scenario 1, just taking level savings from 2022 through 2026, what that generates savings-wise. So the benefit of this one is that if the board chose to proceed with level savings option, we generate a little more capacity for potentially another bond later in 2021 or 2022 to try to keep the future tax rates level to compare to what taxpayers are currently paying. So again, it allows us or enables us to create a little bit of additional capacity as early as budget year 2022. I'll pause there for any questions or comments on scenario 1. Okay. Hearing none, I'll jump to scenario 2. In scenario 2, it's a similar approach, but rather than taking level savings from 2022 through 2026, we are generating most of our savings from 2023 through 2026. So the annual savings, we're only saving about $1,000 or $3,000 in 2021 and 2022, but generating estimated savings for lease rentals from $87,000 to $90,000 from 2023 through 2026. For the visual learners again, you can see similar breakout of this slide in the light blue represents the outstanding common school loans in 2017 bonds. The bluish green represents the 2011A bonds. And again, this shaded orange represents the estimated savings. So the trade-offs on this one are that you're not generating any savings or much at all in 2021 or 2022, but you're creating additional capacity for yourself to consider bonds in 2022, where we can utilize that savings and keep everything level as you may want to consider another project in 2022 to keep your tax level remaining level from 2022 and beyond. So again, it creates additional capacity to enable us to consider a new bond as early as 2022. I'm going to pause there for any questions or comments on scenario 2. Good. I'm going to go ahead and proceed with scenario 3. And in this scenario, again, we're generating projects or proceeds for potential projects. So rather than taking savings through our future budget years, we are decreasing the 2021 debt service amounts. So we will continue, this district would continue to make their $1,067,000 already approved lease rental budget amounts in 2021, but we are decreasing the debt service requirements in 2021. So as you make your payment, which is greater than the debt service, this approximately your estimated $340,000 would then flow to a project fund with a trustee that can be used for projects around the district. So I think some of the examples we talked about are parking lot improvements or a roof, something that not being needed or is easy to bump down the maintenance list year to year that could be used with these project funds. We would still generate a little bit of savings annually from 2022 through 2026, albeit a very modest amount of about $1,000 to $4,000. So this one would be done with the approach of generating dollars today or in 2021 to make improvements around the district. So a similar breakdown on this graph. The blue represents the common school fund loan and the 2017 general obligation bonds. The green is the 2011A bonds. And in this scenario, even though we show a shaded orange, which are in the past couple of slides have actually been savings, we would still keep our total payments as they are in 2021. But again, we're taking the savings, making our typical payment that's been budgeted for and approved for, and letting those dollars flow to a construction fund. Again, that would be available to make those improvements. Any questions over scenario 3? Hearing none, I will proceed with the final option. And in this scenario, we are shortening the repayment structure. So we would generate a little bit of savings, estimated savings from 2021 through 2025, but really target to decrease that final payment in budget year 2026. So this one shows the greatest amount of savings, but you're not really experiencing the benefit of the interest rate savings until 2026. So this would be similar to refinancing your own mortgage, and rather than decreasing your monthly payments, it's just decreasing the term from 20 or 30 years to 25 years as a very general example. But in this one, again, we're decreasing in budget year 2026. So a similar breakdown on this chart where minimal savings from 2021 through 2025, but you see the most significant impact there in 2026, where then we would look at filling in that savings in 2025 for future projects. So the benefit is you're shortening the payment. However, you're not going to have the trade-off there is you may not have that capacity to consider new bonds depending upon needs until 2025. So with that, happy to take any questions or comments from the team.
Does anyone have any questions for Brock? I think the finance committee meeting helped a lot with looking at it, but you know, for us, we have 4 different pieces of approval that Randy's going to bring to the group. But I liken this, I mean, when I look at this from our operational piece, the first 2 are really just cutting some of our payments off our debt. In up scenario 1 and 2. Scenario 3, we're going to free up about $350,000 to use for other capital projects now. And then the 4th, we're really taking it off that last payment in 5 years. So, in a nutshell, that's where we're at. And we don't have to decide that tonight and how we use those funds, but it's something to think about. My recommendation would probably go with scenario 3, knowing some of the capital projects, but this would free up some space in our operation funds. And Brock, we talked about that a little bit with that piece, and then how those funds would be able to be used for flexibility. We wouldn't put AstroTurf or turf on a football field with that, but we could do other pieces with that. We looked at some things at one of our elementaries to capture some space there. So we've got some options there we're looking at with those funds immediately. So that's a decision we'll have to make at a later time. But and then the other thing, Brock, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit, but one of the things that, as Brock talked, we want to keep our debt pretty level. That's important for the taxpayers, and it's also important for us that we keep our debt pretty level. And when you look at the overall debt for our district, it may look like a lot, but my perspective, and Randy's and Brock's talked with that, we're in pretty good shape financially. We don't have a high debt load. I don't know, Brock, if you want to talk about that piece any, but we want to keep that debt pretty level, so we'll have some opportunities for some bonds or something in the next year or 2 to do big projects like we did with our chillers and boilers at the middle school.
Yeah, that's a really good segue in conversation. So if we operate under the assumption that we're going to proceed with scenario 3, I know that Mr. Collins, Mr. Harris will wrestle with some of those priorities around the district, whether those are more capital or building related or perhaps equipment. But this really sets up for a nice timeline as you wrestle with those priorities over the next year that this team could consider a bond in 2022 with how strong the market is for issuers like Fayette County with a strong interest rate, that you could consider a project and keep that debt service level with 2022 and beyond. So really how pragmatically and measured this board has measured its debt, it's really presented a nice opportunity to fill it in as early as 2022 and start our repayments in 2023 and then just kind of set the table and keep it level from that point going forward.
One of the things I think we talked about at the Finance Committee meeting was while scenario 2 does allow for some savings, and to the average person that looks like a lot, but for a project that's, you know, to be able to capture that amount either at the beginning or the end really makes for the ability to do a decent project. And not knowing our needs in 2026, we do know our needs now. I kind of like the idea of being able to capture some of those dollars now. And, you know, our administrative team is all aware of the different projects, the capital projects throughout the district and kind of looking down the line. And so I think that getting their input as to what kinds of things we could be utilizing that money for now, it's a little hard to say what we would do in 2026, but, you know, so I don't know if there's any other thoughts on that.
It seems like scenario 3 gives us more freedom.
Seem to give us more flexibility to meet immediate needs. You know, we could have a roof blow off. I didn't say that, but that could happen. So we would have the funds available if we needed them to do something like that. 5 years down the road, we don't know quite what we're going to look at.
So is there anything else for Brock on this? Brock, Randy's gonna lead us through the different resolutions. Is there anything else, or do you want to stay on board for this part, or do you want to cut off if there are no other questions? It's up to you.
I'll stay on to the resolutions. If there might be a question, then at that point I'll walk off. How about
You might say something about the timeline we would be looking at. As far as when we have to
When we
put
would
this.
have that access to that money and the.
Yeah, he's gonna go over that next.
Okay.
So- Okay, so Randy's gonna go ahead here, Brock.
Well, thank you, Brock. Appreciate the presentation. I know this is about the probably 4th time I've been through it, I think, but it gets a little clearer every time. But hopefully now I can kind of take this information and present it to the board and give a little of my opinion as we go through here. But some of this we're following, obviously, legal guidelines. There are many attorneys involved in this, as well as financial counsel and all of those kind of things. But I want to address, the question sometimes comes up on this, looking at these scenarios, like, well, if we can save a little bit, are we going to save, you know, going across this, could we save a couple of cents off our taxes, you know, for the next 4 years? And the way that taxes are set up throughout the state of Indiana now, with particularly tax caps, is we have many residents that are capped out. The tax cap on your home property is 1%. And if they're capped out, even if we might save them a couple of cents of their tax rate, it's going to be eaten up still by county, city, and other taxes. So the average person wouldn't see any savings at all with the tax caps in there. The other one, yeah, I'm kind of looking at the extremes of this, of about $350,000, $340,000 either up front or in 4 years. You know, I hate to say it, but $340,000 is going to buy more today than it's going to buy in 4 years if continued inflation and everything else that we see. So my recommendation is going to be that way, but let me walk through each of these resolutions. If the board would like me to, I'm more than happy to read through every one with all of the legalese, or I'm going to start trying to speak in English. Both from my experience guiding this, as well as from legal guidance on all this. But the first resolution, Exhibit A, that you have, the purpose of this resolution is it authorizes the refunding. It establishes the savings parameters in which Brock spoke about. It hires Baker Tilly to be our municipal advisor at Bond Council. It also gives them the municipal advisor, so we would be working with Baker Tilly, as well as it gives the authority to the superintendent and the business manager to proceed with this process. So really, the first exhibit here gives us the authority to move forward at the approval of the board, saying, yes, this is the step we want to do, and we want to take this bond refinancing. If you've got any questions, I will try to answer it, or again, Brock's still here to join us if I can't answer the question. But otherwise, I would seek a motion to approve Exhibit A,
Do we need to
the
adopt
resolution approving the refunding.
okay, so do you want us to act before you move on to the?
Yes, let's move through these one, because if you vote this one down,
Oh, you can't
we're
do the
done, we're
other.
gonna walk out of here.
Yeah, right.
So
Okay.
we'll take these one step at a time here.
All right, I'd like to seek a motion to adopt Resolution A.
Motion.
Thank you, Andy. Do I hear a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, Exhibit B. What this does is with any large building project in Indiana, there is also, excuse me, there is also a school building corporation, even beyond the school board, that conducts that. And indeed, whenever all of this was done originally in 2001 and again in 2011, there is a Connersville Middle School Building Corporation, and that corporation consists of George Wilson, Jim Powell, and Dave Mackey, as well as I sit in on it. But that building corporation actually met yesterday, so we got together, they did the approvals that they needed to so far. But this is really the board giving that building corporation authority to move forward also on your behalf.
Okay, hearing that, I'd like to seek a motion to adopt Resolution B.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori. Any discussion? All those,
That was George Morris on that committee. George Morris.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
okay. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, Exhibit C, the third one there in our packet. This really sets out the specific parameters, the timeliness of all of this. What it also does is it provides the purpose for the purchasers of the bond to understand what the financial condition of the school corporation. So this gives me the authority to speak with representatives from the Security and Exchange Commission. They're gonna find out what's the tax rate of the corporation, what's the county like, are we really good for the money? I mean, basically, this is the step, they look at it and say, well, if we buy these bonds, are they really good to pay them back? So it gives me the authority to work with them and to set all of those parameters so that we're ready to refund the bonds.
Okay. Like to seek a motion to adopt Resolution Exhibit C.
Madam President, I'd like to make that motion.
Thank you, Chris. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And then the Exhibit D there, that's the fourth one that appoints me as the business manager to serve as a compliance officer as we go through this, to be responsible working with the council, legal and all of those to make sure all of the procedures are set in place and get all of this stated in a proper and legal manner.
Thank you, Randy. I'd like to seek a motion to adopt Resolution or Exhibit D.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand or say aye. Motion carries.
And then just kind of wrap this up and go back, I think, to the original question even of where are we, what's this do, what's our timelines and all of those kind of things. This is the only action that the school board needs to take, so you have set everything in action to go forward. We will start working with legal counsel, we work with Baker Tilly, we'll be working closely with Brock, we also work with Ice Miller, Jane Herndon's the attorney with them, as well as we'll be working with Michelle Cooper, local counsel in all of this, so all of those things are done. Starting tomorrow, I'll be sending a bunch of paperwork. Board secretary, board president, you're gonna find out your arms are a little tired at the end of the board meeting with all the papers to sign tonight. It's like buying a mortgage, so there's plenty of signatures to do. But it'll set things in motion for them to take the steps and start going. And then we're looking at ultimately, we would have access to the funds somewhere right around July 15th. So, and realize when we talk about this, about $340,000 or $350,000, sometimes we think it's like purchasing something at the store that, I go in today and I know that the price is $12.25 and I pay it. Well, this is going out onto the open market. We're looking to have competitive bids. So the numbers that have been provided by Baker Tilly to date is their best guess, but we will not know what the final totals are until on down the line. So while I'm giving you some parameters that I feel comfortable with, it is not set in stone until it's really set in stone. So I think that's the other thing. It's easy for, I can't tell you the number of times I have asked, so Brock, tell me, what's it gonna be? And I'm gonna get well, it should be between this and it should be between that, and well, if this happens in Nebraska and this happens over in California and the moon's right, then it'll be this. And so the reality is we've got some pretty good parameters, but we won't know the real actual dollars until later on in the year. But it'll be things that we will be bringing back projects to the board, and that's where the board will have input into it on, it's not just gonna be Scott and Randy getting together and go, let's build this or let's do this. Then we'll be back with ideas and capital ideas for the board of how you want to proceed with the use of these funds going forward once we receive them.
Thank you for explaining that last bit. I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brock, anything else for you? Anything else you want to add before you?
No, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to work with your team again. Looking forward to it, and we'll get documents starting to get prepared, and look to sell late March and close in mid-April. So again, thanks for the opportunity.
All right.
Thank you, Brock.
Thank you.
Take care.
Goodbye.
All righty.
Scary.
Okay, we will now move on to the appointment of board member for District 3. Just so the public is aware, and I think we said this at the last meeting, but I know that not everybody watches the board meetings every month. So in District 3, which has, I think, a few seats, but Andy's term was up when we had the election in November. Andy had already stated that he was not going to run again, and nobody else ran for the seat. State statute basically says that Andy has to hold that position. He can either stay on for another 4 years, or he holds on to that position until he submits a letter of resignation, at which time the board would then appoint a new member to his seat. We couldn't persuade Andy to stay another 4 years. He gave us 2 months, but we appreciate that. Andy's been an incredible board member, and we've really appreciated his business acumen and how he's contributed to the board. So with that, we saw applications, and I think we discussed that at our last meeting, and there was a process to apply. We had 4 candidates, 4 very capable candidates that came forward, and we held a meeting where we interviewed all the candidates and had an opportunity to meet them and hear a little bit about themselves, as well as how they might address some issues that could come before the board. So with that, it is our opportunity tonight to select that person, but of course we want to have some discussion about that. I know that, well, I just want to start out, Mark made a comment earlier when we had a meeting that he felt this was probably was the most important decision he's made in the 4 years he's been on the board. So I want the public to know and the audience that we all took this very seriously. It's weighed heavy. I know it weighed heavy on my mind. I'm really proud of the work the board's done in really thinking through and reflecting and, just conversations we had before this meeting that everybody's really been wrestling with a lot. So I thought a good way to kind of, before we go for nominations, I just thought we might share as board members what this process was like for you, what kinds of qualities you felt you were looking for when you were listening to the interviews, and if anything stood out to you, or if you just felt strongly about what attributes you'd like to see in a board member. So
one thing I would like to add is obviously I was not involved,
to
the public, I was not involved in any kind of selection committee or any of the meetings, no emails, nothing. I don't even know who the candidates are, so obviously I'm just going to sit back and be a spectator like the rest of you are. And obviously I trust that all of you have, like you said, I have no idea who they are, I don't know their names, but I'm sure that you've all done your due diligence and selected the best candidate. So, thank you. It's not easy. It's not an easy job, so I'm kind of glad I wasn't involved in that.
He says as he kicks back.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'll open it up to anybody who'd like to start just talking about what this process was like for you, what you were considering after the interviews or during the interviews or at any point.
I'll start.
Thank you, Mark.
Like Leslie said, she quoted me on, I thought this was a very difficult decision, very important decision, one of the most difficult and important decisions I've made in 4 years on the board. We did not get Channel 3 coverage the night that we had the interviews, so a lot of people may have missed out on that, but it was tough. We had 4 good candidates. First of all, I read all their resumes 2 or 3 times, their applications, looked at them very closely. At the interview, they all answered 9 questions, the same 9 questions. And I took notes and compared the notes and put a lot of thought and time into what I thought would be the best candidate that would complement this board. I thought we have weaknesses and we have strengths, of course, but who would be the candidate that would bring something to the board, maybe that wasn't here, maybe something that Andy's going to take with him when he resigns from the board. So I looked really hard at those things, and I thought we had a candidate that stood out that would contribute some of those things that would be weaknesses on the other parts of the board. So that's kind of how I approached it. I'm sure my fellow board members did their due diligence and struggled with this as I did, and I think we're going to have we'll have a good board member however we go.
I just want to thank all 4 people who applied for the job. I agree with Mark. I've been on the board now 6 years, and it is a very difficult decision. And I think having been on the board for a while, you recognize how much work is involved with it. And anyone in the community who is willing to volunteer that amount of time and effort to benefit the school corporation is to be highly respected. But I think as a board, we have a terrible responsibility. Usually the electorate takes care of it for us. And there are 6 of us sitting here that have to make a decision that ordinarily would have been made by the voters of the particular district. So I think we have to take that very, very seriously and look at the attributes of all of the candidates, and hopefully the public will understand as time goes on exactly what we were looking for, and hopefully that the candidate that we do choose this evening will fill all those things. It's a learning curve for all of us being on the board, and the candidates all are going to have to go through that. So it was a very difficult process to do. We had a tremendous responsibility, and I might add that the next time a board seat comes up, and nobody appears to be running, please, public, do your due diligence and be able to to sign up to run for office, because that's all part of the process. We would have rather not been in this position, because we trust the electorate, but the electorate has to do their job also and actually want to be candidates for these positions. So.
We had 4 good candidates, and like everyone else has said, it was very difficult. But what kind of stood out at me, someone who has a lot of energy, someone who has time to devote to the board, because it's not just Tuesday evenings once a month. I mean, we have all kind of extra meetings, committees we're on, conferences we can attend. There's all kind of things throughout the year that takes our time, and we have to fit that into our schedule. And someone that is open-minded, willing to look at all views and listen to patrons or people in the corporation, at any time. We're never off the clock. It's, in the grocery store or at a game or anywhere in town, there we are, and we have to, talk to people and all that, with their concerns or whatever they want to, talk to us about. So anyway, this was very tough, but, there was a couple candidates that did stand out, and we took that into consideration after looking at their applications. So.
I know that for me, being on the board feels like a really big responsibility. I take this role seriously. I know we all do. I'm fortunate to be able to have conversations with everybody, and each of us, in my experience on issues we've discussed, puts a lot of thought and energy into what we have to make a decision over. I think what stood out from some candidates was their ability to relate to people who come from different backgrounds, from people who might not be the same as us. And, Dennis brought up something that he might say now too, but just about hearing all the sides before we make a decision. That was a huge thing for me when I first started on the board, my first time on the board. And that was being able to know that it isn't just one side or two sides. There can be several different sides to an issue, and we need to have a person on the board, or the board members need to be able to take time and patience to be able to look at all that. Also, I think all of us have really valued Andy's input. And Andy not only has served on many boards, which shows his professionalism, that he is selected to be on so many boards. He's an active businessman, and he has contributed in big ways to discussions about business type decisions and finances that some of us, that's just not our strength. And I think Ann mentioned, we have different backgrounds, all of us, and that keeps this board diverse. And so I think making sure that we have a candidate or somebody that fills Andy's shoes, and so to speak, nobody can be Andy obviously, but that can look at it with that perspective is something that I felt strongly about.
For me, being the newbie and just getting into it, that was one of the big things, is being able to learn to look from the outside in all of those different areas, just like she mentioned. And then first hearing about this and going through it, I thought, well, it's not going to be that difficult. That's not true. This was a very, very, very difficult decision, but I do believe any of the 4 could handle it and be able to do it. But just getting down to that finalization of the one was very tough, and it's going to continue to be a time where we have to continue to look from that outside no matter what's going on, and I feel that that will be something that they'll have to learn as well, but I believe they'll be able to handle it.
Chris, do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, and Leslie, it's pretty much what I've already heard. But for me, I looked at all 4 candidates. It was tough, but I looked at them and said to myself, which one of them, to me, can make the tough decisions and stick by it. sometimes when we make decisions best for the children, we can rub against the grain against parents, and sometimes you just have to make a stand and abide by that. Like I said, our goal is what's best for the children of Fayette County, so that's when I was kind of looking at each candidate, look at their backgrounds, and who can make that tough decision. So, thank you, Leslie.
Okay, does anybody else have anything they want to add to this conversation? Okay, so the part that happens now for the public is that somebody makes a nomination, and we'll have to see if we get a second and we get votes to approve that. So I'm going to open the floor to nominations.
Madam President, I would like to make a motion for Jeremy Williams to fill the vacant District 3 school board seat.
Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Welcome, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
We want to make sure to thank all the other candidates that applied. I mean, this was, as everybody said, this was a very tough process. We looked at the information. I know I didn't sleep much the first night just because I felt like I was overwhelmed, but we were in a tough spot, and we're really glad to have the people apply that applied, and everybody had unique traits to bring. So we are thankful for those who applied, and we're happy to welcome you to the board, Jeremy. All right. Moving on to public comments. Persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, and/or comments may address the board at this time. Comments which involve personnel or students must be discussed in private. Seeing none, we will move on to report items. Superintendent's discussion groups report.
I just want to share one thing with this appointment. This was shared with each of the applicants last month, or at the meeting, but at our March 9th meeting, you'll be sworn in prior to the meeting. So that would happen, so you want to get here about 10 minutes early, for about 6:20. So that's just part of the process. And then this is Andy's last formal public meeting. There is one more executive meeting, which those are held in private with closed doors, and they're evaluating me. So that's by law one of the things that happens. So that's going to take place on the 22nd of February. So Andy, since he's been with me for these last week, he's been one of my supervisors as a board member. That will fulfill his obligations. But this is a good time. I'd like to recognize Andy. And when I presented this a few years ago, it fell. And we don't want to drop this one. Yes, I did mine off. And I'll shake your hand and go.
Absolutely, man.
But Andy, on behalf of Fayette County Schools and as superintendent, your dedication, support means a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I didn't know Andy very well before, but if I might have just respected him because he was an optometrist in town and was very well known in the community. I kind of knew his dad better than I knew him. Wow, got to know you, and you have just been amazing on the board. A wonderful board member. You really are thoughtful, logical. You take everything into consideration. You ask the questions that some of us couldn't think of, and we are going to miss you.
Yeah.
You've been an excellent board member.
Absolutely.
So grateful
Thank
to
you.
have you.
Absolutely.
I want you to be able to say a few words, and I'd like any other board members to say whatever they might like to say.
Yeah, well, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say at least a few things, but it's been an honor and a privilege. It really has. You know, the great thing about this is obviously I can rerun again, you know, later in life, and maybe so, but I've been kind of recollecting and going back on where I was at when I initially ran and, you know, came on the board. And this is back in 2016, and man, you know, just in the last 4 years, life has really changed for me because I was single, wasn't even engaged. You know, look at my business and where it's at, where it was and where it is now, and, you know, now I'm happily married, have a 2.5-year-old daughter, and our, you know, second daughter Maggie's due on February 26th, so coming right around the corner, and so priorities have changed a little bit. You know, that still doesn't, and that certainly doesn't mean that, I don't have a great admiration for all of you and want the best for this community and want the best for this corporation, but, there's a time in your life that you just don't want to miss. You just don't want to miss those precious moments in life where you see your kids growing up and you're there and you're home at night and you're able to tuck them in and do all those things that all of you have had that opportunity to do. And so, but I've also thought I'm really honored and really privileged to be part of what I feel is a really large part of history in Fayette County School Corporation with bringing on a new superintendent. No particular order, what we've done with COVID-19, coming through that. The new field house, the solar panels, repurposing our elementary school for our early childhood development. And I'm sure there's a lot more things that we consider and talk about, but yeah, it's been a real honor, real privilege, and I'm sure Mr. Williams, correct? Yeah, you'll have fun. This is a great board to be part of. You're gonna have some great discussions, and everybody here is super open-minded. They're great, very supportive. So and thank you for running and thank you for stepping up. It's not easy, I'm sure, in the interview process to be vetted, I should say. But yeah, thank you so much. And there's a good possibility I might throw my name into the hat again later in life. We'll see where life takes you. The last 4 years it's been fun. It's been a blast. So thank you so much, and I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
I think it's so important. Andy is one of my former students. I can tell you kind of where he sat in my 7th grade class, which is scary. But it's so nice to see someone from Connersville who has come through the school system, who has chosen to come back here as an adult to start a business, to contribute to the community, and his business also does a lot of contributing volunteer time and effort to the community. And so many people say, well, the last place I want to come back to is Connersville. Well, Andy is a perfect example that you can come home again after school. You can be successful, you can give back to the community, and we really, really appreciate that, and it serves as an example for other young people, hopefully, to look at coming back home as a viable option to your own success in life. And you'll have fun with 2 little kids, so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
We're gonna lose an IU fan and gain a Purdue person,
You didn't say that.
but that's okay.
Thank you again. All right. Principal director reports. Do we have any tonight?
I just want to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to share and highlight Grandview. And a big shout out to CHS today and her crew, Sydney's crew. They came out and I wrote the script, and then we put it all together, and the kids were professional, and it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Assistant Superintendent,
I think I'm next. This will be real quick, and I'm going to blame.
Yes, you are.
Thank
Next, yeah.
Dr. Urian, not blame him, but if you look at the finance report this month, taking a little bit from some suggestions last month, previously, and this will probably still evolve as I evolve even, but in the past, you've gotten like the month. It's kind of like, what does that mean? So this time I added not only the end of January, but also what was it January a year ago. So you do a little bit of comparison there to where we're a little better, where we're a little worse, and take it from there. I don't know if there's any questions on it, but.
Great. Thank you, Randy.
Thanks.
Okay, Assistant Superintendent report.
I just want to thank Dr. Yarian. He's been here since I started here, and he's done a wonderful job. And congratulate you and your family as you take on the next chapter of your life. So thank you again for your service.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, Superintendent's report.
I don't have to say a whole lot. I say that every month on I went from the back row, but Andy, again, thank you. I have a respect for board members that, you never know where you're gonna go, like, you may be anywhere and you're gonna get asked a question. And the hard part is not, how you respond to that. And, because you entrust me as a superintendent and our team to deal with that, and this board does a really great job of saying, hey, have you talked to the principal, you talked to the teacher, and that's so important. that they give us that opportunity. And I just want to say Andy's always done that, and our board does that, and I appreciate that, and was publicly acknowledge that. And the fund statement, I appreciate the way Randy presented that, bringing on somebody new, brings some new ideas, but something important for the taxpayers is, our bottom line is $1 million more than it was last year at this time. And so with all that we've done, when you look at some of the projects, we're in better financial shape than we were a year ago. And I think that, is a testament to the board making some tough decisions, and we make those changes as they're moving, every time we look at different opportunities, where can we get more funding, where can we find ways to save. So, that's one of the big pieces to being fiscally solid, and I think we're in a very good place as a district. And that's because of good leadership with the board too, so you'll enjoy working with this group. That's it.
Before we end, I do want to acknowledge another applicant who joined us tonight, Derek Hawley. Thank you, Derek. We really appreciated you interviewing, and we hope you'll run the next time there's a seat open. You brought a lot of good things to your interview, and I just wanted to recognize him because he took the time out of his night to come back and stay with us for the evening, so thank you for that.
I'm not out snowblowing.
Well, that's true. Do we have anything for the good of the cause tonight?
I think one thing that I would like to add, I forgot to mention, was thank you to the citizens of District 3 for electing me initially. I really appreciate that, and I hope that I've served you well, and like I say, I'll be more than likely be back again sometime in the future. So, thank you.
Great. All right, Chris, I'll be waiting on you here.
Thank you. And as far as Andy, again, just phenomenal job you have done. If I was there, I'd give you a big sloppy kiss, but since I'm not.
Glad you're out. Thank you.
And so Chris, what I'm looking for a motion right now.
Oh, yes, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, do I hear a second? Dennis, thank you. All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Aye. Motion carries, meeting adjourned.
All right, Chris, we're signing out, man.